everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Cynthia and today I'm going to be sharing with you how you can start homeschooling for the school year 2022-2023 and how you can plan and organize on a budget. So I'm going to be budgeting for 2 children and my budget is $250 for the entire school year for those 2 children for the curriculum, and as well as a couple of school supplies if I can fit those into the budget. So the very first thing that I did before I even started choosing a curriculum was setting a goal for my kids. I needed to decide what I wanted them to learn, why I wanted them to learn it, and how much of it I wanted them to learn, how deep it needed to go. So I got a piece of paper and I wrote out those goals. I just used a regular notebook and I wrote down the goals that I wanted to create for my children. And once I created those goals for my kids, I was able to decide the different types of workbooks and lessons that I need to create for my children based on what their needs are, based on where they need it to be. And I go based on the Common Core standards, not all of them, just like some type of a guideline I like to use. And that's usually my guideline for knowing if they're at the level where the state would like for them to be, especially for college and things like that, which I don't have to worry about yet because they're so little, but still, you want to make sure they're at a certain standard. You have to set a standard for your kids. So I did that first, and then I figured out how many days of the school year I was actually going to be doing homeschooling. So you can do 3, 4, or 5. I chose to do 5 days a week that I'm going to be homeschooling both of my children. Based on that, I then decided how many school days I'm going to be using. So there are typically 180 days within a school year, but I'm going to be homeschooling my kids for 163 days for the school year. That turns out to being 39 weeks, which is usually 36 weeks for the school year, but the way everything lined up with my calendar, that's just how it is. It's just 39 weeks we're going to be homeschooling, and we have a couple of days off throughout the calendar week. I think there's like 2 or 3 weeks that we're going to take off, like spring and winter break, and then a couple of days spread out throughout the time. It's good to create breaks and days off and vacations throughout the school year so that you don't get burned out and so that your kids don't get burned out, because it can be a lot to do all at one time and to just have it all at once. Then what I did from there was I created themes for each month of the school year, and I built the curriculum based upon that. So for September, we're going to be doing Earth. So we're going to have I'm sorry, I forgot to add, but the subjects that you want to add are really, really important. So for my family, we're going to be doing reading, writing, math, science, social studies, spelling, and language arts, as well as Bible study. So then the next thing that I did was look for free or really affordable resources. Nothing is really free, I learned. The only thing I figured out that is actually free is going to the library with your library card and getting books that way. Or you can use Easy Peasy, all-in-one homeschool.com. They have free resources for homeschooling your child as a resource. I'm not sure how many days they have. It depends on how many days you're looking for, but they do have that as a resource for preschool all the way up into high school. So if you're looking for things that you can just like print or just do online exclusively, there's Khan Academy, which accepts donations as well. I think Easy Peasy also accepts donations, but there's nothing that's like 100% free except for probably Easy Peasy, I would think. So I discovered education.com, and I don't really see anyone talking about this, but education.com is great because they do have lesson plans that they tell you what to say to the child. They provide you with the materials that you're supposed to use for your child, and every lesson plan is completely different from others, and you can choose based on the sidebars. You can choose if you want to do reading, writing, math, language arts, or phonics, or whatever else they have. They have fine arts, and they have games, educational games and activities that you can do for your child that you can all print. They all come in PDFs. So when you go to education.com, this is a resource I'm using. You can go to their website and you can choose which ones you want, save the PDF on your computer, or you could print it at the library. And eventually you're gonna have to print them anyway. I'm just saving mine as PDFs on my computer, and then I'm gonna organize and figure out which lesson plans I wanna choose in which order for the entire school year. So I'm not only using that resource, I'm also using Spectrum's curriculum. This is Spectrum's curriculum. These aren't the only ones I'm using. This is just a few of them. Carson DeLosa, that's their Yeah, Carson DeLosa is the one for Spectrum. So that's what I'm using. I got these books on Amazon. I got 5 subjects for $47. Right now they are 20% off. I have no idea how long that's going to last, but that was within my budget. So I got for my daughter reading, writing, spelling, language arts, and math. And um, yeah, so it tells you in the table of contents, it shows you what lesson plans you're going to be doing for that day, and it has chapters, and it tells you what subject you're going to be learning about. So I'm going to go through each one of these books. I'm going to comb through them basically, and um, I'm going to figure out what I need to take out of it so that I can apply it into a lesson plan and then create lesson plans based upon the subjects. So I'm going to be using education.com and Spectrum's books, because once you do the math, you have to figure out how many lesson plans you actually get within Spectrum and within education.com. It's not 180 days worth for either one of them, but together between that and maybe a few additional workbooks, I can get 163 days worth of curriculum. So I'm still in the works of creating the lesson plans for that, but that is something I suggest education.com. Oh, it's not free. I forgot to add. Education.com is $60 for the year, but you can add as many children as you want onto the account. And you can cancel at any time too if you don't need it anymore, or if your kid doesn't like it as much with the educational games and you just needed the educational material, you can just do that if that's what you wanted to do. Another resource is the Child's Bible, the Children's Bible, which is what we're going to be using in our curriculum. They do have the parables written out on, they're about a page or two long, which are perfect length for children. So we already had that, so I didn't have to purchase that. So my goal was to spend no more than $250. I spent $47 on the Spectrum materials. I got, for my son, Big Kindergarten. This I believe was under $5 on Amazon. Learn to Write. This helps him with his handwriting and tracing letters and numbers and shapes. And this I believe, I can't remember. I want to say it was less than $7 for sure. I know that for sure. I don't know the exact number. This book was about $14.99. This is called Teach Your Child to Read in 100 Easy Lessons. This is a great resource for teaching your child basics. It tells you exactly what you need to say to your child, and it has 2 different colors. It tells you exactly what you need to say to your child and the responses that you should expect for them to have. It tells you how to pronounce every single letter, and it gets even more detailed the further along you go. So the more advanced that they get, there's like passages right here that your child should be reading to you independently. And so I got this. This was like $14.99 on Amazon. And for my daughter, I also got her one of these Learn to Write books, because her handwriting is a little sloppy and I wanted to have her learn to have better penmanship. So that's less than $100. I don't know the number off the top of my head, but that's less than $100 so far. And then my mother ends up getting this. So if you can get someone else, it sounds funny, but if you can get someone else to, if they ask, oh, does your child need anything for homeschool? And you say, yes, actually you can get them additional supplemental materials such as math books or anything like that if grandma wants to get something. This is what my mom decided to get for her. And then the big 2nd grade book, which also has things on handwriting and phonics and social skills. And yeah, so that's the materials I got, but I wanted to leave extra money in my budget for the things that can get expensive, such as getting crayons. I know crayons are cheap, but these things add up. Crayons, coloring books, construction paper, pencils, an electric sharpener. I need a large white dry erase board this year, and I need dry erase markers, and I can't think of anything else, but I need other things within my budget. But those are the things off the top of my head that I know I definitely need. And then I plan on taking my kids on 6 to 7 field trips. I wanted to do 1 a month, and minus December, January, and February, because those are the cold months. But I was planning on doing 1 field trip a month, and I need to set aside money also for going on the field trips because nothing is free. But however, your library can be a good resource for getting discounts for the zoo or maybe aquariums. I know my library has a discount on the zoo tickets. So I plan on taking my kids to the zoo, um, as well as a few other places like children's museums and other things so they can do things. And I wanted to get my kids into a co-op this year for homeschooling, and there's a wait list in my area, so I plan on getting on that as soon as possible so that I can finally get started with them come September. And those are my suggestions. And another thing for organizing your homeschool year, it gets a little complicated. I got lost in a lot of content that I was consuming regarding homeschool organization, but I know that if you just start with figuring out how many days am I going to be homeschooling, how many days am I going to be taking off on vacations, just look at a calendar, go into a Word document, get a school year calendar, the 12-month one, and just block off days that you know you're not going to be homeschooling, days you want to take vacations, week-long vacations. And keep in mind that a typical school year is 36 weeks, which ends up being 180 days. So keep that in mind when you're blocking off those times. And what you want to do is, once you block off those times, you can choose your goals that you want to accomplish with your child. And then once you choose your goals, you can choose your curriculum. Once you choose your curriculum, you can break down your curriculum and go into the table of contents and break down the lesson plans. See if you have enough. This is the eclectic style. Unless you're choosing a different curriculum that already has 180, if you're doing 180 lesson plans, or 5 days a week, or 4 days a week, or 3 days a week, however you want to do it. There's so many different ways. You can't just do one way because it depends on what works for your family. For my family, I'm doing 5 days a week, and that's what works for us. But you might only be able to do 3 days a week, and there's nothing wrong with that, you know. And you might do 8:30 to 3, and I might only do 8:30 to 11, or everyone's different. So depending on what works for you and your family, just do what works and try different things. Do trial and error. Take time to research. It took me, oh my God, it took me 2 years to finally decide that I'm going to actually homeschool my children, because at first I was afraid that I was going to mess up. And I also did not know how to organize things. Because I remember in the beginning when my daughter was starting kindergarten, this was during the 2020 pandemic. And I was like, oh, I'm going to homeschool her. This is going to be great. And I'm still excited about homeschooling, but I thought that for some reason that I could just buy these workbooks and the workbooks would tell me what to say inside of it. And eventually I remember teaching her and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing exactly. Like, I wanted to have more of a plan, more of a structure, and I didn't know how to plan out that much for 2 children. And then he was in preschool at the time, she was in kindergarten, and I didn't know what to do. So now, after 2 years of being confused and not realizing that I can just research things without feeling completely alone, and understanding that there are co-ops that are out there for your homeschoolers that you can look into, and there's different events that you can go to. There's a lot of support out there, and you don't have to do this alone. But once you realize that you can get everything organized, then the ball starts rolling and everything just starts to click and it just makes sense. But you have to just wet your feet. You have to just get started. You just gotta get started. And that's my tidbits of advice for that particular thing. Another suggestion that I have is getting when you create your reading list based on not only the lesson plans but the independent reading list that you're going to create for your child, you can get all of those books at the library. What I plan on doing with my kid is just every week, every Friday, we're going to have library trip day. And we're going to go there and we're going to get the independent books that she's reading for that week, since, you can only keep them for a certain amount of time. But I don't want to overwhelm her by having a huge stack of books. So I'm only going to get probably like 1 or 2 books a week and have her read those books for that week. And then I'll get additional books that we're going to be reading that coincide with our lesson plans. And I'm not buying any books except for these workbooks. I'm not buying any books. And I'm even going to the library to print out the PDFs from education.com. And there's printing is fairly cheap. I want to say it's like 5 or 10 cents a sheet, which is really cheap. So that's my resources. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section, and subscribe and like this video if you are getting good content out of this, and leave any questions below and I will be sure to answer them. All right, guys, I'll see you in the next video.